The air was thick with anticipation as I stepped into the dimly lit foyer of the old Victorian house, the kind of place that seemed to harbor secrets in every creaking floorboard and whispering draft. My heart thrummed in my chest, not just from nervousness, but from the sheer weight of responsibility. I was a new direct care aide, freshly assigned to assist an elderly woman named Nataly who was battling the fog of dementia. The job was my chance to make a difference, yet as the evening shadows stretched long and sinister, a creeping unease began to settle over me. Nataly, with her snow-white hair and eyes clouded by time, greeted me with a vacant smile that never quite reached her gaze. It was as if she was looking right through me, to something or someone I couldn't see. Her daughter, Colleen, had briefed me earlier about her condition, but no amount of preparation could steel me for the reality. The house, with its Victorian elegance, felt more like a mausoleum than a home, each room filled with heavy drapes and photos of people whose eyes seemed to follow my every move. The first few hours passed uneventfully, with Nataly mostly silent, save for the occasional nonsensical murmur or distant giggle. It was unsettling, but I reminded myself it was part of the illness, part of the job. I busied myself with preparing dinner, tidying up, and trying to engage Nataly in simple activities. However, as the clock neared midnight, the atmosphere began to shift, charged with a palpable tension. Nataly's behavior took a sudden and disturbing turn. She began to wander the house aimlessly, her movements erratic and purposeless. Then, without warning, she stopped in the middle of the living room, standing as still as a statue. Her eyes were wide open, staring blankly at the far wall. I called her name gently, hoping to snap her out of her trance, but she remained unresponsive, as if locked in a world of her own. The silence was shattered by the sound of the oven door slamming shut with such force that I jumped, my heart racing. Nataly had somehow moved to the kitchen without making a sound, her figure silhouetted against the dim light. I watched, frozen, as she opened and slammed the oven door repeatedly, each bang echoing like a gunshot in the quiet house. I approached her cautiously, my voice soft but firm, trying to coax her away from the oven. "Nataly, let's go sit down," I suggested, reaching for her arm gently. She turned to me suddenly, her expression one of confusion and fear, as if she didn't recognize me. Then, just as quickly, she resumed her silent vigil, standing motionless once more. The night wore on, and Nataly's behavior grew increasingly erratic. She would wander into rooms and whisper to empty chairs, laugh softly at unseen jokes, and at times cry out in distress. Each time, I did my best to comfort her, to bring her back to the present, but it was like trying to hold on to water. The house itself seemed to be closing in on us, its walls whispering secrets I couldn't understand. Then the unthinkable happened. I found Nataly in the dimly lit hallway, a kitchen knife clutched in her trembling hand. Her eyes, usually so vacant, burned with an intensity that chilled me to the bone. "Nataly, please put the knife down," I pleaded, my voice steady despite the pounding of my heart. But she advanced, step by slow step, her intentions unreadable. In that moment, every instinct screamed at me to flee, to escape the nightmare that this job had become. Yet I couldn't leave her, couldn't abandon this fragile soul lost in the grip of her own mind. With a calm I didn't feel, I spoke to her, words of comfort, of reassurance, hoping to reach some part of her still anchored in reality. The standoff seemed to last an eternity, but finally, Nataly's grip on the knife loosened, and she dropped it with a clatter to the floor. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. The realization that I couldn't handle this alone was a bitter pill to swallow. Swallowing my pride, I called Colleen, explaining the situation through trembling lips. The decision not to involve the police was a difficult one, but I feared the consequences for Nataly in her confused state. Colleen arrived in what seemed like seconds, her face a mask of concern and fear. Together, we managed to persuade Nataly to go to bed, though she clung to me with a strength that belied her age, whispering words I couldn't understand. When we found the knife next to her bed later, a shiver ran down my spine. It was a stark reminder of the danger, of the line we had tread so precariously. The night finally came to an end, but as I stepped out into the cold dawn, the weight of the experience settled heavily on my shoulders. The drive home was a blur, my mind replaying the night's events over and over. I knew then that I could never return, that the shadows lurking in Nataly's house were too deep, too dark for me to combat. As the sun rose, casting light on the path before me, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had left a piece of myself behind in that old Victorian house. The echoes of Nataly's whispers, the slam of the oven door, the cold steel of the knife, they would haunt me, reminders of a night where the line between caregiver and survivor had blurred. In the days that followed, I wrestled with my decision, wondering if I had done enough, if I could have changed the outcome. But some battles are too fierce, the adversaries too intangible. Nataly's world, with its shadows and specters, was a realm I was ill-equipped to navigate. The horror of that night lingered, a chilling testament to the fragility of the human mind and the darkness that can dwell within. It was a lesson in courage, in fear, and in the limits of our ability to save others from themselves. As I moved forward, the memory of Nataly and the haunted corridors of her home would serve as a solemn reminder of the night I came face to face with the true nature of terror.